we're going to help the Milwaukee Bucks pay their own way to a new arena, and we're going to include it in our budget next week.
The plan, christened Pay Their Way, will issue bonds to cover the state's investment. Governor Walker says no new taxes will be used to pay for the bonds. Instead, the funds will come from money brought in by NBA players.
Scott Walker wants to be your next president. To do that, he has to prove to not only his local constituents he has their best interests in mind, but also the American people. And he's making a bold statement that's flying under the radar when it comes to public cash building a new palace for the local NBA franchise. But will it truly be a good deal for the people of Milwaukee and the state of Wisconsin? He would hope so. That means votes. Let's tip off the stick and ball this week by welcoming back the man who originated the concept of sports business, the sports professor. And I put "the" right there to make sure that he gets that. Rick Horrow joins us. How you doing, Professor?
I figured you'd appreciate this. Behind me is the Daytona 500 Daytona Rising track. It's cold here. I just heard from your news people that the weather is straight from Siberia. It makes sense. I need to put a coat on. But this is a $400 million improvement at this facility. There's been over $2 billion spent on public-private partnerships for all kinds of spectator facilities in the last 15 years. This one's going to be finished by next year, and I know you're segueing into Scott Walker, so give me your best shot.
Well, but here it is with Walker, and you know how I feel about this because you and I have had this discussion many times. I do not feel that taxpayers should ever have to pay for an arena or a stadium for a sports franchise because, frankly, they're the ones who are usually left holding the bag. So what makes this one by Walker so unique?
Well, first, in a self-serving way, that's been my business for 35 years. You know it. And one of the issues that makes it easier to sell is a structure where, quote unquote, the taxpayers aren't holding the bag because it's money that's created from the economic activity surrounding a franchise that wouldn't be there but for that franchise. And in Wisconsin, they have a state income tax which takes the dollars that are available from those high salaries of players and they pay taxes on it, and the money is funneled back into the bonds to get the facility done. No facility, no bucks. No bucks, no income taxes from those players, and no revenue. So it's a fairly simple argument to understand, and bold, though, to present, given the naysayers, so kudos to Scott Walker.
Well, it really opens up something else because years ago you never had to worry about the taxes that players actually paid to a specific state, but now you have states going after the players, every dollar they make in the state, so it's actually not a bad idea, but the question is, will this take off then and lead to other arenas, stadiums, whatever being built, and the public still not being on the hook when the teams are gone after 5 or 6 years?
Well, it's part of a broader approach that, frankly, we've been involved in for a number of years. Tax increment financing, where you develop the funding out of the economic activity generated by that district. Different states call it different names: increment zones, empowerment zones, development zones. But the theory is that if these facilities spawn economic activity, commercial activity, restaurants, hotels, and the like, and you can quantify it, then you ought to be able to take some of the property taxes and funnel it back into it. That argument is basically no different than this one.
All right, about a minute or so left before we take a break. Come back and do a little bit more. We'll get to A-Rod and Lance Armstrong after that. But let me stay on money here for a moment.
I can't wait.
I know you can't wait. Neither can I on this one. The World Cup is now going to be held in the latter stages of the year. This is going to fly in the face of the NFL, the NBA, the NHL. The World Cup's making a mess of everything here in America, but they really don't care, do they?
No, well, Qatar has caused an issue that is rippling in the soccer industry because, you know, this Siberian cold air, it seems to avoid Qatar on the way down here. And unless you didn't read the memo, we understand that it is a desert and it is a bakery. And frankly, it's too hot to play those games in the normal World Cup cycle. So they've had the ability, because they write bigger checks, to say, let's move the games to earlier. But by the way, what they forgot was the entire soccer schedule of the world is dependent on the World Cup at a certain time during the summer. So we are going to have a lot of splaining to do, as you like to say, on this one. We haven't heard the end of this story.
Was this just a bad decision to put it in Qatar, money aside?
Well, you can't say money aside because money was the core of the decision. So there are a lot of issues involved in collapsible stadiums, by the way. They're making a promise that after the Qatar World Cup is over, they're going to tear those stadiums down, fold them up, send them to third world countries. So let's see if that promises, Kevin.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to write that one down right here, write it on the inside of my hand, and make sure that we talk about that one in a couple of years. Another one that they'll miss. Stand
There's
by,
a lot
Professor.
of other stuff on the inside of your hand, man. Be careful.
That's very
Be
true,
careful.
too, but we're not going to do that because it's a family show. More money in sports business madness after the break. The two biggest liars in sports history and the franchise owner who can't resist ruining his team and the lives of their loyal fans. It's all about money in the end, my friends, when Midpoint continues. All right, intermission done. Back from halftime. Back to work with the sports professor, Rick Horrow, who joins us from outside Daytona International Speedway. Let's go ahead and talk about Lance Armstrong a moment here, shall we? I'm sure you're okay with that. Yeah.
Well, hey, it's fine. It's same old, same old.
Well,
So,
but wait a minute. It's not really the same old in some ways, because Lance Armstrong lies, says he didn't lie, gets caught, says he didn't lie, gets caught again, says he didn't lie. But now you finally got a $10 million judgment against him to repay a promotion company. Isn't this what we've needed for a long time? If guys are going to cheat, you got to hit them in the wallet, because not only he, but the next guy we'll talk about, Alex Rodriguez and others, they just continue to cheat. They just figure they can get away with it. You got to hit them in the wallet, Rick.
I think it's a great response, by the way. I don't mean to minimize it, because I think the tide is turning. Every new corporate contract written by every lawyer with every endorsement now, post Armstrong, post Tiger Woods, post O.J. Simpson, is now smaller, it's shorter, and it's easier to terminate, and it's less guaranteed. Those protections you can build into these standard endorsement contracts. But what you're saying takes it to another level, is that it is in fact harmful to have an athlete and an endorser be involved with a product, an event, a franchise, and he's tainted because he represented X, and it's Y. And so this judgment, if it stands, I think it will, gives you the ability to argue fraud as it relates to all of these kind of claims, and it does have an athlete think twice before he realizes he can say anything, especially on social media. It's easier now to say the wrong thing, not just because you're not as morally inclined to say the right thing, but because you're a click of a button away from having thousands of people hear what you say.
Rick, let me take this the next step here, because this is a personal contract between he and a promotions company. But then again, now let's get down to team sports. Football players, baseball players, whatever you want to call it, they still work for somebody. That somebody has sponsors. There's billions of sponsorship dollars that are spent there. You have people who say and do stupid things in social media, in the general public. Is it possible that we could get to the point legally where you could find athletes of team sports getting their wages garnished, or some kind of recourse against them if they do something stupid, hurt the franchise, and then in turn hurt the sponsor?
Well, the wages side, which is one piece of this, rests with an athlete's contract to perform certain services, and if he doesn't perform them, the team can terminate either for any reason, or there are morals clauses. Usually the morals clauses have not been enforced against an athlete that says something stupid, and that's one piece of it. The second piece is the Armstrong example you use. If a corporation pays an athlete X and the athlete says that he doesn't do something and he does, or vice versa, the X value is based on that athlete's credibility. And if his credibility comes into question, then you can have an argument that he's not worth what he was paid. It's attenuated. It's a long way from getting there. But this Armstrong court decision and judgment, as you very eloquently and entrepreneurially point out, may be a step in the right direction.
All right, step in the right direction maybe for the New York Yankees to tell Alex Rodriguez, thank you so much for your apology. And as a matter of fact, somebody already says that it was not written by him, it was just presented by him. But basically say, sorry, because this is all about money too. They're looking to not pay him certain bonuses.
Well, it's that, but it's also, on the other hand, the Yankees have to be very careful about their brand. You know, they're worth nearly $2 billion, or maybe even more, according to Forbes. And the bottom line is they're only as valuable as those 20-some-odd World Series, but also the players that are under their organization. So they've got to be very careful distancing themselves from the character of Alex Rodriguez, but not distancing themselves from Alex Rodriguez, the third baseman, especially if he's coming back.
Do we believe anything Alex Rodriguez says at this point, or is he much like Lance Armstrong? Don't believe a thing.
No, just shut up and hit, or don't hit. And if you don't hit, then goodbye.
Well, it's the same old thing, because if he comes in and hits 3 home runs in his first game back, everybody will. Well, I'm going to stop that, because I don't think everybody will forgive him. I think Yankee fans may actually do something a little different this time. All right, Professor, we're all out of time. I'm going to let you go back, get in your car, get out on the racetrack now, and show us you can do 240 miles an hour without a driver's license.
See you next week, my friend.
All right, buddy, take care. Rick Horrow joins us on the show, talk sports business specifically. All right, a man who is talking about himself. Jeb Bush has spoken. He is his own man. But does anyone really believe him? That's going to be the point next. It's coming up right here, where we question everything and everyone for that matter on MidPoint.